Welcome to the Ascent Podcast, a show about inspiring people who explain their path to achievement. I'm your host, Joe Burgess, Wealth Advisor at Moxie Wealth Management. Today on the show, I interview Cortney Godfrey, reporter for Minneapolis Fox affiliate KMSP TV. In 2017, while water skiing with her family, she was involved in a tragic accident. We learn how she and her family mentally dealt with the loss, but also how the accident sparked a better version of herself. In addition, we learned about her mental perspective on chasing success. And now, my interview with Cortney. Hi, Cortney.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start kind of where you started. You're not from Minnesota.
No, I met a very cute and convincing young man from Minnesota, and here I am, raising our two kids here now.
Here you are. You were, from California originally?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and my whole family's still back there. They, I think, have given up hope that I will come back. So it's a great place to raise kids. You know, for the longest time, I wanted to go back to California. I married my husband, under the understanding we will move back to California. You have to promise me, sign here on the dotted line. But once you start having kids, you realize what a great place this is to raise a family, and I'm stuck. So
yeah, I think for Minnesotans, we're always surprised in some sense that somebody from maybe a warmer environment, we could convince them to come to Minnesota. I know you went to college at University of Arizona, right?
Yep.
So I happened
Bear down,
yeah. I happened to live in Tucson for a couple of years. When I first started with my career, I was down in Tucson. And every time I called Minnesota, the first question somebody would say on the phone is, "Oh, how's the weather?" Right?
We're so weather obsessed
Just
here.
Weather obsessed.
Everything surrounds weather. That's why my meteorological colleagues are so popular, because we are so weather obsessed. But it is funny because people from Minnesota always say, "What are you doing here?" when you tell them where you're from. I'm like, you got to stop doing that, you guys.
Right.
Okay? Be proud. Yes, winter is horrible. We all agree. But there's a lot to offer here. And when you always respond with, "What are you doing here?"
Right.
It's not a good look.
Right. You know what I've found, because I've had friends who've transplanted to Minnesota from other places, that for them, sometimes it was hard getting in with the community.
That is true. Minnesota ice. Yeah.
Right.
I thought there was something wrong with me when I first moved here. I've never had an issue making friends. And I first went to Duluth. So in the TV news business, you take jobs in small markets first. So I took a morning anchor job in Duluth because I had met this very cute, very convincing young man in Scottsdale, Arizona, who lived in Minneapolis. So I took a job in Duluth, and I had a really hard time there. You know, people would be like, "Let's get together," and then you'd call them. They wouldn't call you back. They had their groups already established, and it was hard to get in.
Yeah.
But when I came back, I went to Louisville, Kentucky after that, and I came back to Minnesota, and I had a totally different experience here in the Twin Cities. But yes, I think it's very true that Minnesotans, it's hard to penetrate those friend groups.
Well, and I think part of it is, I mentioned I was down in Tucson for a couple of years. In the 2 years that I was there, I met one person who had actually grown up in Tucson. Everybody else was a transplant from somewhere else. And in Minnesota, people are here for generations.
And if you're from Minnesota and you move away, you are always coming back.
Yes.
You are coming back.
So let's talk about your career then. So you're a TV reporter. Did you always know that's something you wanted to do?
I did. Growing up, wanted to be a pop star or an actress, and my mom said, "No, get a real job.
Okay,
you gotta pick a real career." So she really didn't want me to major in theater in college, and I always had over socialization on my report cards growing up, kindergarten through senior year of high school. Over socialization.
That's a really nice way to say it, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Very nice. And so my mom said, "What about communication as a major?" And I thought, okay. And I grew up watching the local news. My parents are still people. When I go to their house, they always have KTVU, San Francisco, on their TV, morning through night. And unless it's a Giants game. So KTVU or a Giants game.
Got it.
And so I grew up watching local news, and I loved it. And so when I started in college, I just started getting internships. Freshman year, I started interning. I've interned at probably every station in San Francisco, and I loved it. It was just a different way to get in front of the camera when I started. And then when I got into it, I got to meet people. I get to meet people from all different walks of life. I get to tell people stories. I've always loved to write, so it allowed me to write. And here I am many years later, still doing it.
So just so people get an idea behind the scenes, what is that process like when you go out for a news story, the writing for whatever it is that you're reporting and saying? I assume that's 100% you. Is that easy? Is it hard? Were you stressed when you started? I mean, what's that process?
No, if you do this job, you like a constant level of chaos. Like, I live in a constant level of chaos, and I love it, right? So you have to thrive with a little bit of anxiety.
Got it.
I love having just a little bit of anxiety constantly in my life. Like, too many balls up in the air. Great. Love it. So this job is so unique because when I start my day, it's just go, 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 go until I finish my live report at 10 o'clock at night. And then I get to go home, and it takes me a while to unwind. Mm-hmm. But every day is different. Every day I get to go out and I meet people from all different walks of life, and I get to interview people on their best days and their worst days. Some of my least favorite days are when I have to show up and knock on somebody's door after their child has been killed in a horrific accident. Some of my best days are when I get to interview someone who's doing something really positive in our community and tell their story. But yeah, I write everything. I do all the interviews. It's really me and my photographer out there in the field, and just us. He shoots and I write it, and yeah.
And how long have you been married now?
Oh, don't test me here. 7 years? 7 years.
Did you have to move? Because this process, I think, in the news media or TV reporting is that you just kind of have to be constant, you know, moving to different markets and getting your experience.
So I moved here for him. I just got lucky. In this business, you never get to pick where you go. It's who will hire you. Who wants a hard news reporting brunette in that market? I mean, it sounds so bad, but, it's whoever feels like you fit with what they're looking for. And so they kind of pick you. You don't get to pick them. And so you go to whatever city hires you. But in this situation, I knew somebody. I got my resume sent to the right person. And Fox 9 was like, hey, we're hiring. Do you want to come out for an interview? And I got the job. So we were long distance dating for a while because my husband owns a business here in Minnesota and he couldn't leave. So I got the job in the Twin Cities basically because I wanted to get married to this guy.
Yeah, right.
And I've been here ever since. But it is a lot of moving, and it's, and there was a point in time in my life where it was just like you move every 2 years. You go for the next best opportunity, the next biggest market. And the ultimate goal for me at one point in my life was going to network, getting to New York and getting to the top, the pinnacle in our job. That would be the pinnacle, right? Working for network. But after my accident, which we'll get to, priorities changed.
Yeah. Let's talk about your accident, which is, almost 7 years ago now?
Yeah, it was September 2017, and we were out on my husband has a 19-foot ski boat. He's an amazing water skier, amazing snow skier. And my sister and her husband were out in town from California. And so we took the boat out, and, we had been out on the water all day. And at the end of the day, my husband did a power turn, which is a common maneuver if you're a water skier, you know that move. It's kind of like doing a donut in the water.
Okay.
And I was thrown off the boat during that turn, and just a crazy sequence of events. The boat turned right over me and the inboard propeller hit my foot. And, when I held my foot out of the water, that was the last time I saw my foot. So I got to the emergency room at HCMC, and that's when they told me, you're going to be an amputee. We can't save your foot.
For a period of time, was it life-threatening?
No.
Okay.
I think in the moment, so when you go through something like this, you have this like fight or flight response. So in the moment, I'm thinking, I'm going to die. Am I going to die? Am I going to lose so much blood? Because you don't know. I saw what was left of my foot dangling off my ankle, but I didn't really know. My sister was on the boat. She's a nurse. She tourniqueted my leg. I think they knew that everything was going to be fine, but that they knew I lost my foot. They knew there was no salvaging it. But yeah, you go through this like fear thing. I remember being in the ambulance and telling my husband, if anything happens to me, go move on, like go have kids.
Right.
I want you to go start that family that we talked about, which is so terrible that I was thinking that in the moment. Like when I think about that today,
Right.
it's like, wow, that's really awful that's where my mind went. But you just go into kind of a trauma response.
And how was he?
Yeah, it's been a journey for him. There has been a lot of guilt, but I think the only thing that really has gotten him through that is the fact that I never blamed him because it was a freak accident. I've been in boats 100 times when we've done this same maneuver and nothing's ever happened. And so he had to do a lot of work. I remember there were days where he would just like come up to me and he'd just have this look on his face and I could tell, you could just tell this heaviness. And he would just say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And it's like, we don't say sorry around here. So that was a rule we had to make was we don't say sorry. This was an accident. You didn't do this to me and we have to move on. Right. So, but it's been a journey for him. And today I'd say, almost 6 years later, 2 kids, he's finally moved past that. But we also went and saw a trauma therapist. So we saw a psychologist who helped him work through some of those feelings. And that really helped.
I can only imagine. What was your initial thought after you found out that, okay, I'm not going to have a foot any longer?
I mean, your initial thought is certainly dread, but I knew that my foot wasn't coming back. So it was like, okay, here's a pivotal point in your life where you get to choose. Am I going to wallow and go to some dark place, which many people would, or am I going to have a positive attitude and make something great out of it? And in the hospital, on the trauma floor, I made that decision to just say, okay, my foot's not going to grow back.
Right.
Let's shift our attitude and our perspective on this and let me do all I can to help others, to advocate, and to make something great out of this.
When that happened, did you have to make a decision to remove more of your leg for the prosthetic?
Yeah. So the doctor came to us, they do the emergency surgery that night where they, close everything up and just make sure there's no infections and that your bleeding is stopped. And so the head of orthopedic surgery at Hennepin Healthcare, Dr. Andy Schmidt, came to my room the next day and said, look, we want to remove more of your leg because it'll allow you better access to prosthetics. And your family has told us that you're super active and, you snowboard and you love high heels. And we want to give you access to all those prosthetics that are on the market. And if we leave the amputation at the ankle, you're going to be really limited. And my initial reaction was, no. I've already lost so much.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, like right then, right?
Like, no, you've already taken my foot. I mean, not really. They didn't.
Yeah, they didn't, right.
But that's how I felt, So, no. But when they explained it to me, it was like, all right, let's do it. And so I went in for surgery. Now I'm amputated like mid-shin. And I do have quite a few legs now, none of which are cheap. So,
one thing I was thinking about as I was preparing for this interview is that often I see your name and then the reference. It's Cortney Godfrey, and then it's almost immediately followed by amputee. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's hard to be labeled, right? It'd be like Joe, the bald guy.
Right, for sure. Which is a great thing, right? No, I'm just kidding.
It's not a pleasant thing to be labeled. Yeah. And I worry most about my kids, just like any parent would. I worry most about when they're in school and their friends label me as such, like what happened to your mom? And I worry about how that will impact them and how they'll grow and how, will they put up guards? Will they put up walls? Will they fight back? I worry about that stuff. But for me personally, I just have to be confident that having that label allows me to do good work. Yeah, I wish that I was known as Cortney Godfrey the mom, Cortney Godfrey the spectacular TV reporter, Cortney Godfrey the beautiful, could be a bikini model.
There you go.
Throw that in there if you'd like. Google search. I'm open to it.
You make your own Wikipedia page.
Yes, exactly. But unfortunately, when you type my name into Google, it's Cortney Godfrey, and amputee is the first thing that pops up. I think the second thing is, how did she lose her leg? And it's just something that I have to live with, and I have to be okay with it because I know that it allows me to do so much good and has given me an elevated platform to help so many people.
Right, for sure. Was there some kind of negative, inaccurate reporting around the accident?
There was. Yeah. I think it's hard as a TV reporter to suddenly be the center of a news story because we're trained to not make ourselves the news. So that was tough when you have the media calling. And there was one reporter in town who will not be named, they're no longer working in this market, who sensationalized the story and put out false information that was really hurtful to me and my husband. And then I had to go work alongside that person as soon as I returned to work 6 months later. You know, we're covering the same thing, and there they are, to which I did not let them go easy. I gave them a piece of my mind.
Sure. Right. Well, that's what I was thinking of your kids. The fact that you had lost your foot, you know, that's one thing, but it's the negative stuff that's out there.
And thankfully, the positive outweighs the negative.
Right.
You know, I think there are plenty of people who, they see my story and they want to put blame on someone, or they want to imagine some sensationalized story where we were drunk and fighting or something like that. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
It was a freak accident. It could happen to anyone driving down the freeway today. You could be in a car accident. I hope you're not, but it's a freak accident and it happens. Unfortunately, we're living in a clickbait world where people will capitalize on whatever they can make up.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here, but on the other side, I want to ask you about changing perspectives. Hey there, this is Joe. You know me as the host of this podcast, but did you know that I'm also the co-founder and president of Moxie Wealth Management, a boutique wealth management firm in Minneapolis, Minnesota? My team and I excel at taking complex family and business planning concepts and making our financial advice easy to understand. We recognize the trust that executives and families place in our team and value our role in helping our clients be intentional with their assets. When you partner with Moxie, my team and I focus on creating a plan that encompasses your financial goals and philanthropy, while also understanding how you want your wealth to impact your family and future generations. You can trust our unique expertise to build a thoughtful yet strategic wealth and legacy plan for your future. To learn more about me and my firm, send me an email at joe@moxiewealth.com. That's joe@moxiewealth.com. I'm a registered representative and investment advisor representative of Securian Financial Services, Inc. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Securian Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. North Star Resource Group is independently owned and operated. Moxie Wealth Management is affiliated with North Star Resource Group. There's a book that I've read periodically, Daily Stoic, just little stoicism things, but one of them was just about changing your lens or your perspective. Since your accident, how would you say that you've maybe changed your lens?
Well, I'm still the same person, right? Like, I'm still the same Cortney I was with 2 legs. I'm just Cortney with 1 leg.
Sure.
And a lot of different legs.
Yeah, right. How many legs do you have? I need to ask.
So that's complicated. Yeah. So I have a high heel leg that looks like skin, and I have a special foot for snowboarding because I'm a big snowboarder, and I compete on the World Cup circuit now.
Yeah.
And then I have a regular, everyday walking foot. Oh. I also have a running leg, but, I've discovered that I'm just not that much of a runner. I'm not committed to running, so that has gathered a lot of dust in the closet.
And I think
fitness, running, I can live without.
Right. I think what I was thinking was things that you thought were super important that maybe you just had to refocus on. Okay, wait a second. Here's the really important things in life, and maybe it's not what I thought beforehand. Was the accident life-changing more than physical?
How could it not be?
Yeah.
Right? Of course, it wouldn't have been for some people, but for me, when that accident happened, I was still the same Cortney, but I was a better version of myself because I went forward with a purpose. My purpose being to help other amputees, to advocate, and to just show people that there's a different standard of beauty, for example, as a female. And those are things that are really important to me. And I always tell people I get to be a better version of myself. So while I would love to have my leg back, if there was a magic genie in a bottle and they were like, you have one wish, I'd be like, give me my leg back. Right. 100%. But because I lost my leg, I get to be really the person I always wanted to be. This person who gets to have an impact on our community. And so I am so happy with the life that I'm living now, and I wouldn't be living this life if it weren't for that horrible thing that happened to me in September of 2017.
Right. So now, as part of helping with the community, I think a couple of things you do. One, you're on the board.
Wiggle Your Toes.
Wiggle Your Toes. So tell us about that organization.
Yeah, Wiggle Your Toes, amazing organization. It's an amputee nonprofit based here in Minnesota. We help amputees all over the country. It was started by Aaron Holm, who lost his legs over 10 years ago in a freak accident. He was helping...
Minnesota person?
Minnesota,
okay. Yep.
Shakopee. He was helping a coworker jump her car on the side of the freeway, and he was in between the two cars, and somebody was distracted, and he got pinned between the two cars, lost both of his legs, 3 young kids at home. And he, like me, was in his hospital room going, how can I help? Immediately went to the positive, which is not how most people are built, by the way. That is not a normal response, just freaks like Aaron and I. But Aaron started Wiggle Your Toes from his hospital bed, and so we focus on heal, recover, flourish. So we're there from the beginning. We do hospital visits, and we provide mentorship to you when you're in those dark days of like, this is not the life I planned, and how can we be there to support you? And then recover, we will put in a ramp at somebody's house if we need to, help them get prosthetic legs that insurance won't cover. And then flourish. We do a lot of like camps. We get people wakeboarding and golfing and skiing, and we help you flourish in this new body that you've been given.
And if you're helping a new amputee who's having maybe some serious emotional issues, do you find that sometimes you think, geez, am I qualified to help this person through it?
There are certainly people who need professional help beyond what I can give them. I can usually walk into a hospital room and know if they're going to be successful or not. And it all has to do with where their perspective's at. Because your perspective, even in those early days, is so telling as to where you're going. And yeah, there are cases where it's like they need a psychologist. Unfortunately, when you go through something like this, it can be pretty dark. And when I say, I was positive from the beginning, that doesn't mean that I didn't, dip my toe in that darkness. I am naturally a positive person, but I remember my family saying to me, like, you need to grieve. This is not normal, Cortney. You need to grieve. A little bit of anger is okay. And so they opened up that door for me to express that. And I did have those moments where I just cried and sobbed and called out, why did this happen to me? But as long as you don't stay in that dark place, as long as you're able to bring yourself out of it, you'll be okay. It's okay to go right up to that door, look Satan right in the eye and say, not today, and then turn around. But it's the people who really can't see past that darkness, and it's common. And there is a lot of help out there for people that are way more qualified than I am.
I want to get back before you mentioned snowboarding. Tell me about that. You're on the World Cup circuit now?
Yeah.
Is that professional?
Well,
or competitive?
It's competitive.
I
certainly don't get paid.
I don't know the space at all. Yeah,
I certainly don't get paid to do it. I spend more money than I'm making. I'm not making anything. So,
were you a snowboarder beforehand?
Yeah, I was a snowboarder before I lost my legs, and my husband is an amazing skier. So he really, when I met him, I became an even better snowboarder because he was pushing me, and like one of our nannies said, she said, do you guys ever go on warm vacations?
Right.
No, we just ski and snowboard. It's so all funny. We do. So basically through all the advocacy work I do, I have gotten connected with a lot of, professional athletes, people who are doing amazing things as amputees. Sure. And so I got to know some of the girls who are on the U.S. para snowboard team. And I went out to Utah just on vacation, my husband and my son, and I met up with them and did some training runs with some of them. And they were like, you should really do this. Like, you need work, but you're good. You should really think about doing this. I'm like, no, that's crazy. I'm too old for this.
Yeah.
In my 30s, but too old. And I went to my boss at Fox 9 and was like, look, I want to give this a shot. It's a Paralympic year. People are telling me there might be a shot that I make the team. And I hadn't even finished making the pitch, and my boss was like, yes.
Awesome.
Fully supportive. So all last winter, I spent traveling the world. Some people think I'm a horrible mother because I left my 2-year-old son at home. That's a whole keynote speech in itself.
There you go.
I traveled the world competing, and I quickly got enough points and had enough winnings on the Euro Cup circuit to move up to the World Cup circuit. And I didn't make the cut for China, so I was not invited to be on the U.S. team to go to compete in the Paralympics. But Italy, 2026, I am not ruling it out. So
very cool. So currently,
this is my pitch to my boss right now.
I'm going
to need the next 2 winners off.
Got it. Well, I was just going to say, are you currently doing 3 or 4 months a year of competing?
So I wish I could. I took this winter off to have another baby.
Sure.
We wanted
reasonable excuse. I think so. Yes, right.
For some, not for others.
Right.
Some would say that's not a good excuse. But I took this past winter off to have another baby. So as soon as the season was over last winter, we started trying. We wanted to grow our family, and so Frankie, she's 6 months old now.
Yeah.
So I plan on going and training next winter, and I'm so out of shape right now, I can't even tell you. I'm still trying to find the balance of having 2 small children. So next winter, I plan to get back in snowboard shape. And look, I have a lot of improving to do. I went into this completely inexperienced. I loved to snowboard. Mm-hmm. I thought I was a good snowboarder. I think most people who would see me out on the mountain would say I'm a good snowboarder. Mm-hmm. But once you get with a professional coach, they're like, you're doing it all wrong. We have to completely rework how you're doing this. And I was just free snowboarding. I was not competing.
Not for speed, right?
All of a sudden, you're getting thrown into a gate next to 3 other girls in a border cross course with jumps and turns, and it's a whole new world. So I have a lot to learn still, and I learned a lot last winter. But I love it. It's so fun. And it's just one more thing that I can show other female amputees. Look, you can do it. You can be a mom. You can wear high heels.
Right.
You can snowboard. You can do whatever you want. It's not going to be easy, but if you put your mind to it, you can.
You've now become a motivational speaker. What are some of your key insights or points that you try to get across to people when you're asked to present? I
think the biggest thing that I focus on, I'm a motivational speaker. So I show up, I talk for an hour about myself.
Great.
People hire me and pay me to do it.
Yeah.
But when I do motivational speaking, the biggest message is don't wait for something horrible to happen to you to shift your focus, don't wait to tell that person that you love them, to start that business, to go for that promotion, to start a podcast. Whatever that is for you, don't wait. Because I could have died that day on the boat. Another 70 degrees, and it would have been my head and not my foot. And they would have pulled my bloated body out of Christmas Lake. My husband would have been a widow. My family would have been in deep grief, and there would have been a lot of things left unsaid and a lot of things left undone. So don't wait for something like, I don't want you to have to lose your leg to shift your perspective on life.
I was thinking about that. Traditionally, if it's a life cycle of things, and maybe you had an event that forced you to reflect a little bit more, has what is important changed?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before my accident, I was still in this career mindset of, okay, I'm going to try and get to a top 5 market next. So if that means my husband and I are having to have a long distance relationship and commute, what? But I was so career focused and career driven, and all of a sudden I had my accident. It's like, I can still love my job, but not put my job first, because there's a lot of things in life that are a lot more important than the daily news. I love my job and I'm 100% there when I'm there, but my family and just having fun, enjoying life, that's way more important. And so, my priorities changed 100%. I got closer to God. I got deeper in my faith. I didn't wait to tell people that I loved them. I didn't hesitate in, setting big goals. Like, I think I might go out for the Paralympic snowboard team.
Right.
People might think I'm mentally ill for that. But I've been to the deepest trenches and the darkest places, and I know that those big goals, just do it. Because what do you have to lose? Honestly, what do you have to lose?
Right.
You might fall flat on your face, but the fact is you're probably going to jump and you might fly.
Right.
The likelihood of you falling flat on your face is lower than succeeding.
Are you less fearful having gone through probably one of the most scary situations? Now do you look at the rest of life and just say, give it a shot? I'm not afraid of failing.
Yeah,
maybe?
I think it's a natural instinct to be afraid to fail. We all are afraid to fail. What you have to convince yourself to do is to actually take the leap. That's the hardest part. The hardest part isn't actually, I think about snowboard jumps. When I'm going off a snowboard jump and I went into competing and I had really not done a lot of jumps, and you have to do a course that has multiple jumps and you've got 3 girls next to you. So I think about it like a snowboard jump. When I started training in jumping, I would be sitting at the top of the course. Like, I remember there was one time I was up there for like an hour and my coach was like, you got to just go. But you'd sit up there and think about how bad it could be. But once you committed to it, that was the hardest part, right? Sitting up there for an hour, but once you committed to it, the worst thing that was going to happen is that you fell on your butt.
Right.
But you're not going to die.
Right.
Committing and actually making that leap, that's the hardest part. It's not the fall. It's actually the jump.
I was thinking one of the scariest things I think I've ever done, I tried to climb Mount Rainier a few years ago. And the worst part about it is it's a 2-day thing. And the first day you get up to 10,000 feet and then you sleep in this barracks.
Lovely.
Yeah, right. Where you've
not my kind of vacation.
Right. Oh my God. Where you've got sardines, like 6 people up top, 6 people below, and their sleeping bags or whatever. But you have 6 hours before we're going to wake you up to go climb the summit. If I got an hour of sleep in that 6 hours, because what was worse to me is that we weren't able to just go, but that I had to sit and think about it. Yes.
That's the worst. You get in your head. And when you get in your head, you're doomed.
Right.
When you get in your head, you are doomed. Mm-hmm. My snowboard coach, again, back to snowboarding, I remember my coach looked at me one time and he's like, what are you scared of? And I said, well, I'm scared of dying. So dramatic. But if you see these courses, you would understand. I was like, well, I'm scared of dying. Yeah. And he said, you can't ride scared. You can't ride scared. You can't ride through life scared. And he's right.
So we do this podcast, of course, where we interview people, successful people, learn how they think and what their path is. How now would you define being successful?
To me, being successful is giving love and receiving love, because there's all kinds of material things that are thrown away. For me, being able to mentor and help other amputees has filled me up to no ends. And I don't do it for me, right? I do it because I do enjoy helping those people, but it fills me to be able to see those people thrive when I walk into the hospital room and they're thinking, will I ever snowboard again? Will I ever bike again? Will I ever run again? Will I ever wear high heels again? And I walk in there and show them, yes, you will. And then I watch them as the time progresses and I watch them do it and I watch them succeed. And it fills me. So I do it because I love to do it, but I do it because it also makes me feel good. Giving love and receiving love is, to me, just the best thing you could ever experience. And so success, obviously my kids are my top success. Nothing in this world will ever compare to being a mom and having children. But the next best thing for me is that I get to show up for people on the worst day of their lives and show them that there is a way forward. So to me, I've had success just because I've been able to take what's almost broke me, in that moment, in that first 24 hours, and I've been able to make it into something positive.
Awesome. Well, we're going to leave it there. Can you believe we're already done? I appreciate you sharing your story. It's amazing and inspiring, all those good things, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love to share.
You've been listening to reporter and competitive snowboarder Cortney Godfrey. You can see her on Minneapolis Fox affiliate KMSP TV, or likely on a ski hill somewhere around the world. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ascent Podcast, a show about inspiring people who explain their path to achievement. I'm your host, Joe Burgess, wealth advisor and founding partner of Moxie Wealth Management. You can learn more about me and my firm at moxiewealthmanagement.com. That's MOXIE wealthmanagement.com. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.